Hi guys, it's Chloe here and welcome to the Saucy Podcast where we have unfiltered conversations about life, career and everyday shenanigans. We are on our 4th episode on YouTube and thank you so much for listening or watching it on YouTube. We have gotten a lot of feedback and also comments, so I'm really grateful. I could not have expected that people are receiving it so well. In today's episode, we are joined by a very special guest. I am so excited when he agreed to come onto the podcast. I remember we had several discussions way back when I started the podcast. He is such a passionate soul and has such strong commitment in terms of like self-improvement and also knowledge and just making their lives the best that it can be and also helping other people do the same as well. So he will be sharing his perspective on the ways to build a successful life by laying the foundation early in our early 20s. So without further ado, let me welcome Zayne, the star of the show.
Hello.
How are you
Yeah,
doing?
I am doing very well. Thank you for asking me to join. It's very exciting and quite look forward to what we'll be talking about and what I can share, etc. So
it's an honor to have you onto the podcast. I mean, you have been doing so many projects, and I think your passion and your commitment actually inspire me as well to continue. I mean, there are, very challenging days, working on a side hustle and also balancing like the full-time job. I should mention like a little bit of your background. So you do work full-time in digital marketing and you do have many side hustles that I keep popping up. I think like you're doing coaching since 2019, right? And then you have your YouTube channel, podcast, and you also do live sessions like almost every week. Super like disciplined in terms of like overall personal well-being and like fitness. I don't know how you do that. Can you tell us what's your secret? How do you keep such a high energy, to drive so many projects?
Well, first things is thank you for that. And I'm glad that whatever I'm doing has got a bit of inspiration on other people and just like encourage people to do what they want as well. I think that's always good stories to hear. So thank you for telling me that. I really appreciate it. Second thing is in terms of secrets, I'm not quite sure whether there's like a secret that I do or what I do differently, and the thing is, it's a bit like weight loss. What's the secret to weight loss? Well, there's no secret. Like you just know they need to eat less and exercise more or move more. But people always think like there's this like little hack or little secret that can make you just sit down and then just lose the amazing weight. But it doesn't work like that, right? And we know it. And you actually work really hard to not hear about the secrets of weight loss, right? It's everywhere. So and the same thing applies here, which is like when you ask me like, oh, you do so many things, what's the secret, etc. I just spend the time and then just do it. That's pretty much it really. But there are some little tweaks that you need to make. So for example, one of the things that you talk about is like, where do you get all the energy to do all these things? And you mentioned a keyword there, which is, I think it's about passion. So if you think about energy as a thing, right? Energy doesn't come from food. Like we will all have a time where we go to a party, we eat lots of food, and we feel like, oh, I'm so starved now. I don't want to move. Like you don't have energy. Energy doesn't come from food or drinks or whatever. It comes from, I know it's very cliche, but it really comes from a passion. It really comes from doing the things that you really want to do, doing the things that you want to do, doing the things that you love to do. And I think it gets emphasized a bit too much sometimes that people are like, they second guess what they love or what they are passionate about. For me, I think it's just like, okay, let's go back to energy. It's like that comes from passion. So doing things that you love, but the work is then you having to find out and spending the time on identifying what is it that I love and what will I do to explore what I love. So that's just what I'm doing. You mentioned that I do a lot of things like podcasts, YouTube, my coaching, and I also see my investment in lots of stuff as a little side hustle as well. I don't know whether any of them will lead to any success. I'm juggling a lot of balls at any one time. Sometimes I do drop a ball here, I do drop a ball there, but all I'm doing is exploring. I think that's what people don't do because they're like, if I think I want to do this and I try it and I don't like it, I feel like I've lost that passion. I've lost that thing that I love. Like you don't really lose it. If anything, you find out a bit more about yourself. So I know that I love my fitness. I love my coaching. I love to study about blockchain and investing. I love to do this sort of stuff, like, go on video and share things, but I also know what I don't love. I don't love to do all the post-production. I don't love to do this. I don't love to do that. So it's a bit like, you're just trying to explore. So I think the
Yeah.
starting point is to explore, but then once you explore and you find the things that you want, that's when your passion and energy really comes in. So
Yeah, and I think that the power of sharing, you always talk about, what you have learned, you're sharing with other people, because a lot of them, they actually don't share that journey as well in terms of exploration. They only want to share when it has already become like a really successful product. Just seeing like how you have been really, really vulnerable and also open with all your learnings and also the improvements that you have done. So yeah, I really personally, I really, really enjoyed that. So yeah, thank you for doing that.
thank you.
Diving back into maybe historical, like how did you start it? And like when was the turning point for you to sort of embark on this personal development journey? Because I think like it didn't really started when we first knew each other back in uni, right? But
No.
then like after that, I sort of see that, you have evolved and, we sort of talked about it. And yeah, now I think you are at, okay, I can't say peak because I know there's going to be more coming in. Yeah, but in terms of like, there's just more than one.
Yeah. So when I was in uni, and obviously, people who are listening, they might know or they might not know, which is we are both from Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
Went to the UK to study, and I wanted to get a job in the UK. I worked really hard at that time to like find a job because I studied business as well. It's not like I study a very specific or technical degree that make job hunting very easy, like software engineering or computer science or
Healthcare professional.
Healthcare professional or whatever.
Yeah.
I just did the bloody business management account, right? Simple as that.
Don't
So
say that.
which makes it really hard, because
It
what
is,
gives you the point to fight with other people, because you work in another country, there's a visa issue, etc. Anyway, so my sole focus was on getting a job in the country, and that's it. That's all my sole focus was that point. So when I finish uni, then you go to your room. I'll just like look for jobs, send in applications, blah, 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 blah. Okay, finally, eventually, I managed to get one, which is the company that I currently work at. Very good, very lucky, very blessed. So I was happy. Then I started working. I think maybe it's a few months in or 1 year in. I think it starts to build up because I see my housemate at the time, he was working towards a professional qualification as part of his career path. And I was just like, wow, someone else is working hard still, even after graduating from uni. Then what am I doing? Just like watching YouTube and Netflix, and that's it. But it slowly piles up from there. It just like builds up. And then one day I listen to podcasts as I'm driving to work, and then just start to come across all this development stuff and thinking about your future, etc. And that's when I thought like, wow, I've got the thing that I've always wanted for the past few months, but where do I go from here? I think I lack a bit of fulfillment and sense of achievement at that time. And then I just thought maybe I should find an answer. And before I know it, the rest is history. And here I am now having this conversation with you. So it did take a long time, a lot of money. So it's like, 2 to 3 years in, but I'm very glad that I did that. And I trusted my gut to do what I wanted to do at that time, because I realized one thing, which is when I was really young, I always loved learning about like human behavior, psychology anyway, but I just never knew it was going to be a career. And then when I got into personal development and do all the stuff, I realized that, wow, actually this can be someone teaching about a life skill that someone can actually learn and benefit from, or to make things better for themselves. So I now started to do the coaching side of things. But that was the starting point, basically.
Coming to your point where you say like, you were very, very focused about getting a job when you were in your uni. I think that's what a lot of people were really focusing on. Like when you're studying, you want to get your degree. And then when you're doing your degree, you want to make sure that you get your job. And that's all you think about. And you think that when you get into the job, like you're set, right? But actually it's not. Like you still need to like keep learning. You still need to, and it's self-learning. Nobody's going to push you. Like you have to push yourself to do that. Yeah. I think that even myself, like going through that journey as well, like thinking, oh my God, like what do I do now? Right? Yeah. What do I do now? Like, is it going to be like, wake up, go to work, and then come back, maybe like just chill out, watch a movie, and then go to sleep and repeat that cycle? And at one point, it just feels a little bit empty, and you're just like, oh God, like, is this the next 40 years?
Yeah, and I think
Right.
that's what we don't talk about enough, which is if you
Mm,
imagine like your life is like this, you're going on this journey and path. We always see a point here, like, okay, this is
yeah.
what I want to get to. So this was
Yeah.
when I was in my uni, got the job. But then we're like, okay, we got past this point now. So like
What
what's next
next?
here?
Yeah.
What's next?
And the what's next is, I think, it's hard in a way because suddenly you realize that, are you going to be just defined by your job, or is there something else? Is there like another passion? Because that's one question that a lot of people ask when you want to describe yourself. Okay, I'm Chloe, I do digital marketing. Okay, what else? What
Mm.
other thing do you do? Like, what defines you? Like, what's your passion? And I find myself like thinking a lot of times, like, oh my God, like, I don't know. Because all I wanted was
Mm.
to get a job first. I wanted a job, and that's all that was like in my mind. So I think that
Mm.
was a very, very huge like realization that I feel like if I had known it earlier, then perhaps like it would have been it would have been better and made a huge difference. On the point on like coaching, right? So how is it like, what do you mean by like when you say you do coaching? Let's break it down for all of us.
Okay. So I'm actually not quite sure if I like the word coaching, to be honest, because I think it's got some,
Bad
I think it
association.
got some really negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
People think about coaching is like, I don't need fixing, like I don't need anyone to tell me how to live my life. So I'm not quite sure if I like that word, but that's the word that everyone knows. So let's just use that for now. Coaching for me is basically having someone, so that's why you have a coach, to be able to help you to see things that you would normally see yourself. To give an example, the way that human behaviors work is that when something happens, there's an immediate reaction to it. That's how it all works, right? You have, you didn't get this job, you fill in a job application, you fill in an interview, you lose money in an investment, or you run into someone, you got an accident, you have an immediate reaction to it. It's like, I'm not good enough, someone else is better than me, someone is so more qualified than I am, I'm so stupid, blah, 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 blah. It's like immediate inside your head. So what coaching does is that between the event and the reaction, whilst it happens within a millisecond, all we do is that we just expand this space so that we can see what are all those mini moments that happened here that led you from the event to the reaction. And that's all I help my students or clients do. They will say to me, oh, this happens, I feel like this. I'll be like, okay, so why did you feel like that? And most of the time, it always goes back to your history. It's your culture, it's your family background, it's your education, it's the way that you're being brought up, it's how your friends around you behave like, your colleagues, so many different factors that influence that, but it's all based on past experience. We don't look forward to tell us a story that we need to be telling ourselves. So coaching is just about, now that you are familiar with that side of your story, here's another way of looking at it. And maybe this is a bit more empowering and encouraging. And that's all it does. But it doesn't become natural for us because education was 12 years, right? So whatever you learned in your past 12 years of primary school, secondary school, uni has made you who you are today. And if you want to go back and change those 15 years, it's like it doesn't happen in a moment of time. So coaching is a consistent thing that you share what's going through in your life with another person, and that person must be skilled enough. I genuinely don't believe that anyone can be a coach. I think you have to be so skillful enough in active listening, asking the right questions, understanding the science between human behavior and psychology. So there's an art and science aspect to it. And then you can deliver the results for your client. And that's the standard that I set myself up to. And it's really nice to see that when your clients do really nice things to you, or when they say that, oh, really appreciate you doing this, like no one's ever heard this. I even have friends who will tell me things that they would not tell anybody. Like I'm almost the first person outside family to know what they're going through. It's just like the level of trust and relationship you go into is just different level. A very, very, very fulfilling. Very rewarding.
That sounds really, really nice. But I'm sure it must have been really, really challenging moments as well. Yeah.
Especially when you work with people who are so firm with the way of their thinking or very vocal. You really have to work on different people's style of communication. Like if he's very firm, I'll be super firm back to him to say, this is what I think is true. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I will never say they're wrong. I just say, what about this? What about that? I'm just encouraging them to look at things from a slightly different lens, and then we just go from there.
Did you go through like a lot of training? Would you have like mentors on your own? How does it? Is there like a program for it?
So at the moment, all I do with my students and clients is I do them with like 12 weeks. We use 12 weeks as a baseline. So every week we jump on a call and we'll talk about what happens there is an element of sharing, learning, and accountability to it. They will share what they're going through. I will share with them what I've learned, what they can learn, and there's accountability to make sure that we both take actions. Two things. If I am holding my students or clients accountable to what they need to do, I'll say, I want you to do the same thing back to me, because I want to show you that I'm going to challenge myself and I want to be a doer, not just a sayer. So that's the first thing. So yeah, accountability, I think, is very important. Second thing is, I would never go for a coach who doesn't have a coach him or herself. If I'm spending X amount of money with you, you better show me that you spent equally, or if not more money than I am, on someone else's to learn the skills and knowledge that you need to advance where you are right now. Because I think that shows commitment, and you are living what you are actually saying. You're not just like bullshitting your way around it, which I think a lot of people do it in this industry. So, but I choose not to be one of those.
Everyone is like, can proclaim themselves as a coach. I'm a coach, you're a coach, everybody's a coach.
Yeah. Because people just go, oh yeah, we just ask some questions. Like I can ask my friends, I can read some books. So for example, I did a podcast with one of my podcast partner. He asked me a lot of challenging questions about coaching. It was like, what's the actual value you're providing people? Why can't I just read a book, etc.? So I did a lot of like detailed exploration on that, but it's also good to see why people don't trust it. So now if people say that to me, I would just go, let's have 2 30-minute conversation, or let's have 1 45-minute conversation. And if you don't take away something from it, I haven't done my job and you don't work with me. That's it.
Yeah. I think like people just tend to have misconception or just, judgments or whatever it is. But I think like it's fine. Like if you feel that you have some opinion about it or some judgment about it, then it's up to you whether you want to try it or not. Or if you probably want to explore, just try it out and see how it goes. Like if it's not for you, then it's not for you. Nobody is here to hard sell you into anything. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'll tell you 2 things. I think last week, as we were recording this, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp had a massive meltdown, right?
Yes,
no one can get access, etc. So at that time, I was going to have a session with students or clients. And I thought, we normally do it via Messenger. So if Messenger is done, we'll just maybe just reschedule it. But then he sent me a note on LinkedIn to say, let's do it on LinkedIn. I was like, oh God, you are really passionate about making sure we have this conversation, aren't you? So that shows you, right? But he was skeptical to begin with. But then he see the value, and now he wants to make sure we have this conversation moving on. So it's like, it's really nice that when you see that happens, it's like, that's when resourcefulness comes in, which is, doesn't matter what breaks down, we'll find another way to make it happen. That's one thing that I think coaching encourages us to do, which is not being reliant on something. You find where you want to go, you'll get there. And then the second thing is that I always tell people around me to say that, yes, I'm doing all of these things, but don't FOMO. Okay. Don't FOMO into this and go, everyone's doing it, I need to do it. Or you think something is wrong with you. Like nothing is wrong with you. Like absolutely nothing is wrong with you. If you're very happy where you are by watching YouTube, Netflix, playing games, having a comfortable job, I say you're doing a fantastic job, because you are genuinely happy where you are, and not many people get to that stage. But if there is a little tiny, teeny part of you that says, maybe there's a little bit more, maybe there's something different, maybe we can do this, then all I would do is that I'll encourage you to explore that curiosity and just see where that brings you, what doors it might open. Because guess what? At the end of the day, if you have that curiosity or that moment of inspiration, but you don't act on it, and then one day you look back, you are the one who's going to carry the burden of that regret. Not me, not anyone else. It's you. So that's just what I tell them. But I tell them to say, don't FOMO. Definitely don't FOMO in. And if you're really happy where you are, I'm super happy for you, and just appreciate that you're in that space.
That's really good. Good advice. Is there any like framework you use with your coachees? I mean, you can just give us a glimpse into it. I guess everyone is hearing about it right now probably will want to know. I'm curious too.
So, I think this brings us to what we're talking about, right? So initially when I started, there is no framework, no nothing. I just I want to do this. Let's try this out and see what it's going to turn out to be. I run ads on my own. I spend a lot of money learning about Facebook ads, running them. And then I did get a few people. We just start to have conversations. I start to learn what their problems and challenges are. So for example, I know that I only want to work with people who are in their 20s or early 30s, right? They're kind of millennial, Gen Z type, because I'm that age, they can probably relate better, understand where they come from, etc. But then after lots of times of doing the same thing, I then boil down to these framework that I now have, which I'm going to call it like a bit of omni growth framework. And it's like a 6-part process. Not a process, but just ways of thinking. As I explained to you previously, it's a bit like an aeroplane, right?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
6-part to it. It's just easier because we all know how an aeroplane looks like. We all know what it does. I'm happy to share with you all 6, but I'm going to leave up to you to decide for your audience. Do you want me to focus on a few, or would you like me to briefly touch on all 6 of them?
Tell
I'll let you
us.
decide.
You can focus on
Main ones.
Yeah, the main ones. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So if you think about an aeroplane, right? Like that, you got some wings, you got some engines, you got some cockpits, etc.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I absolutely learn about people, and they never get this, is that cockpit of your airplane is super important. If anything, I think it's the most important. And the cockpit is like where your driver sits, where it decides where the plane is heading. So for me, in the coaching world, that is where your intention comes in. So the first thing is, what is your intention? Are you clear about where you're going? Easiest way to think about this is, we all know Google Maps can bring you from A to B by train, by car, on foot, whatever. It can give you all the methods, all the routes. But if you don't know where your point B is, it doesn't matter. You have Google Maps. That first step is about, where is your point B? Where do you want to go next? Why does that matter to you? It's about having absolute clarity on where do you want to end up, what kind of person I want to be, who else is relying on me to make sure I get to this point B. And then we go from there. So first step is always about understanding where your intent or intention is. And then the second thing for me that I think is very important is the body of the plane. And the body of the plane is your confidence, your self-esteem. And I think that's super important. It has to be big enough, but not too big. Because if you get too big, your confidence gets too much, it gets egoistical. You stop learning. You're like, I'm the biggest plane. Why do I need to learn? Everyone needs to look up to me. So it's like, no. But you need to be big enough to be able to weather the storm and ride the turbulence. If it's too small, you're going to get really bumpy when wind starts blowing left, right, center. So for me, building up that confidence is very important. So that's where the body comes in. And then let's just talk about another one in this analogy, which is like a fuel tank. I'm not delusional. I don't tell people to say, oh, just focus on what you want to do, go to a vision, and money that cannot buy you happiness. Like, I think money can buy you happiness and can buy you a lot of things as well.
Yeah.
So exactly, cash is very important.
Yeah.
So money and, your resources, having a roof over your head, having food on your table, those are very important things. But so the question is then, how do you maximize your personal finances? You need to learn about investing. If you don't do personal finance, if you don't manage your money will not manage you. It will just go everywhere. So fuel tank is where your money goes in. It's like a fuel that fuels your dream, that fuels your goals, that fuels your life. So that's very important. There are other parts of the framework, but I wouldn't go through it now. But those are some of the key ones that I think I've learned, that I actively tell people about, especially when we're in the age of like 20s and 30s. This is quite a very balanced approach that I share with them now. So
I like when you say like balanced approach, because I think that it's not like those kind of really like far-fetched theory that you ask people to take the maximum amount of risk. I think this is more rational. Like, you still can get like the best of both worlds. But what do you say to like those people who maybe are not so clear with their intent? I think like that's one of the huge struggles that most people have, right? Yes, they feel unfulfilled, they feel a little bit empty, but then again, like I don't know, like I don't know what I want. Right?
Yeah.
My take is that you have to explore until you can find it, and it doesn't get it right the first try. Probably it evolves into something else. But I want to hear from you. What would you say to, let's say, a coachee if they came to you and said, I know there's something that I want to do, but I'm not quite sure what that is yet?
That's a very, very good question. And that's why when I was explaining earlier, I always think this is the first point where people break down, which is they don't know where they want to go. That's why the cockpit bit is so important. But if people come to me and say they don't know, and I'll be like, okay, so tell me, what do you know? I will not go down the route of, oh, I don't know this, I don't know that, blah, 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 because they're feeling very uncertain at the moment. So I'll bring them back to some level of certainty to go, okay, you said you don't know about this. So tell me, what is something that you do know for sure? And they'll be like, what do you mean? I'll be like, Yeah, tell me what you know about you now. There's something that you definitely don't want to do, right? So that's something you know for sure. So tell me, what do you not want to do? And if they go, oh, I don't like this, I don't want to do that, I'll be like, okay, why do you hate those things? They'll be like, oh, because this involved that. For example, it might be too detail oriented. I don't like it. I like to be like a big thinker. I want to do this. I want to be more creativity. Cool. So if you flip what you absolutely don't want to do into absolutely what you feel like want to do or explore doing, can that give you a bit of indication as to when to go next? For example, if you go, I absolutely hate drawing, right? Like, absolutely, that's not what I want to do. Why? Because there's no structure, everything is free flow, like I just can't do it. Okay, cool. So now you learn something, which is for everything that's absolutely free flow and you have to really squeeze that creative juice, probably not something for you. So whatever you're exploring next, within that, those things can be eliminated. So we don't look for that one thing. We look for what are the characteristics of certain things so you can filter it that way. So we shift our thinking from looking at the next one thing into what are the characteristics that I might want to explore or what are the ones that I genuinely don't want to explore. So that might give you an idea of what you want to do next. So use those to inform what that particular thing might be. But that comes from a deeper layer of work first, which is, I think what you just mentioned there, which is you will not get right the first time and you just have to be okay with it. You're going to suck. And you just have to be okay with that. I'm afraid that's it.
The first try, you normally suck, and it really impacts your self-esteem, it impacts your confidence, and it goes back to the cycle like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. I would never be good enough, and I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, if I started, right, I said that when things don't work out, you mean you go, things don't work out, I'm not good enough, I'm a piece of shit, I'm done. But what if we expand this space? So when things don't work out, instead of you telling yourself, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm a piece of shit, now we go, okay, let's identify what happens here before we get to this feeling or emotion. And then we switch that. So instead of you telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm a piece of shit, you now tell yourself, what can I learn here? How can I do things better next time? And maybe, who knows, second time, it might just work out. It might be the fifth time, it might be the sixth time, it might be the 100th time. But most people, they don't do it because it doesn't work on the first few times. And they're like, I'm not born for this. And I'll just go back to my comfort circle and that's it. Not easy when you're doing it on your own.
Yeah. When you mentioned about confidence, I know you said that it can't be too big, it can't be too small. Does this means that like when they have, set an intent or set a direction that they're going to go, like should they just be confident with their decision?
So there's a concept in psychology that's called the confidence competence loop. So it's like an infinity circle, basically. So you start off like, okay, I don't have confidence. Okay, fine. The reason why you don't have confidence is because you probably don't have the skills or the experience or whatever yet. So whatever you do here is the starting point is that you will have your first time. You are not going to do well, but you're going to learn something and you're going to build up some skills. And suddenly it works out to be quite good. And you're like, okay, now I've got a bit more confidence. Okay, now you're a bit more confidence. Now you're like, okay, but now there's a new challenge. I need to learn something new again. You learn something new again. And you're like, okay, now I'm a bit more confident to do this. And then before you know it, you're going to into this cycle, right? So confidence comes from competence. I think if people just go out and just do things and like, I'm confident in it, blah, 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 that's when your planes get too big. That's just ego. There's no confidence in there. Real confidence is like, I have the skills, experience, and knowledge that I know I potentially need in order to progress with this. And confidence is not about having certainty about the outcome, but about certainty in the process of knowing that no matter what hits you, you have the confidence to know that I can figure this out. It's not just like putting this out and like, oh, I'm really confident. Like, that's just kind of,
But there's a lot of people that can't do that actually. Because they appear so confident, like people naturally gravitate to them. But of course, like it's a shell and it cannot last forever because once you actually really get to know them in a deeper level or you get to work with them in a deeper level, you will find out that actually it's not all that. And you'll be like, hey, what happened? So it's just pure confidence that, build up based on, I don't know.
Exactly. And that's why it's good that we are aware. So because like people, like we say, people might put on a shell pretending to be one way when they're actually another. So that's interesting in its own way. But I think we can't help but sometimes look up to people and say, oh, I would like to be that way. I like to be that way. And I think it's always interesting to know if you feel like that, then it's like, if you want to be that way, fine, but you're going to take himself or herself as a whole. You can't just say, I want this bit of him, I want that bit of her, I want this, I want that, but I don't want all the shit that comes with all of them. Like, it doesn't work like that, you know? So, but for me, that's where confidence comes in, which is I don't want to find confidence in someone else anymore. I want to find confidence in me. And that comes from sometimes being vulnerable, share my stories, share my learnings, let people know that I'm the same person inside and out, so they don't live into my life. Let's say if I exchange soul with somebody else, they won't come into my life and go, oh my God, this is actually what he's going through. Like, it's not how he looks like on the outside. This is going to what he's going in the inside. Like, I don't want that. That's my standard, which is if someone exchanged soul with me, the way that they see me when they were inside and outside of this body is exactly the same.
Yeah, it's what you get.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's 3 other points, which if any of you guys are interested, you can definitely reach out to Zayne. We have his socials, everything, his website or his channel in the description box. Thanks for sharing with us the 3 main points, which I think is really, really important for us. The direction, you have the confidence, and you also have the more on a more tangible and realistic viewpoint, which is that you need to actually have resources. You want to be able to sustain. A lot of people talk about, I want to freelance, I want to do something else, I'm going to quit my job the next day, and and that's it. But maybe it's just the agent side of me that I feel like that's not really like a very feasible way. But I do know work for some people because they are naturally just a big risk taker. But I think like on a more realistic point of view, from my point of view, Asian point of view, that is that, you still want to have a contingency plan that if anything goes wrong, you are still secured and you can still be safe to explore other things. You don't feel like you are strained or like you are just bound by all these problems because you don't have the right resources to help you to go to where you want to be.
Yeah, that's a very, very great point. And I just want to share very quickly. Some people will tell you take big risks, burn the boats, which if it is really for you that way, I would say go for it. I wouldn't say that's wrong. It's just that you need to know what type of style works for you. So when I first started, I was a massive risk averse person. Like if I do investment, etc., I want to have 5 figures in my bank to make me feel secure. But 3 years down the line, I become a massive risk taker, especially when it comes to investment. So I tell people that I live paycheck to paycheck now. Not that I genuinely do, but because every cash that I've got left, I know that it doesn't add any value. I've got enough just to make sure if anything genuinely happens, I can sustain through it. But apart from that, everything outside of that goes into some level of asset allocation. It's just because we're leaning a bit more towards the vision side at the moment. But I know that I've got my bases covered, my absolute bases covered. But I have conviction to make sure I also make my future the best that I can possibly be. So it's going to take time. Your risk appetite might change, but whilst you're making decision, you have to work out where you are first and do what's right for you at that time. Then it might change. So, for example, if I tell people my allocation now, people will be like, "Oh my God, this is super crazy. Can't do it." Fair enough. That wasn't where I started. So I think knowing where you are, what's important to you now is important. Then you can get started. So take the baby steps.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of self-awareness and also acceptance on like who you are as a person, because a lot of times I feel like people are easily influenced by other people. Let's say if B says, okay, I'm going to do this, and then you'll be like, oh, I want to do that too. But are you that type of person though? Like, are you that type of person that would be able to do? Because if you follow B and it turns out that you're not like B, and then you have other problems that you probably would not have expected yourself to be in, whether it's like money problems or like anxiety or stress. Yeah. Which I think, that's something that you gotta really think about. Yeah.
Yeah. Best thing to think about it is like, if you can go to sleep at night without any problem, that's a good sign. Yeah. If you can't, think about it.
Yeah, that's something. That's a sign. That's a big sign.
That's a great sign.
But from all of the coaches and all the sessions that you have done, and in a very niche target group, which is like the millennials and the Gen Z, is there a very similar pattern in terms of like the problems that they are facing?
It's quite different for everybody, but in general, is that they have some kind of idea where they want to go, but they don't have the courage to take the steps to get there.
It's the fear that's holding them back.
It's the fear that's holding them back. Yeah. I think a lot of the times, because social media, everything has exposed us to so many things in the biggest world, it's more easy for us to compare ourselves to other people. Like, oh my God, this person is like 24 years old. He or she is now Olympic champion at 24 years old, you're like, what the hell am I doing? And I'm 27 and he's already like an Olympic champion at 24. It's so easy to get to all this news now and you can't help but comparing yourself, which I think is fine as long as a comparison is in a healthy way. But I think a lot of us nowadays, that comparison doesn't come from a place of curiosity or learning, whereas it comes from a place of judgment. It's like, I'm not as good as he, I'm not as good as she. That's one thing I think, again, talking about they kind of know where they want to get to, but they don't know how, or they know they don't want where they are now. They don't like where they are now, but they don't know how to get out of it. They always get stuck on the how. How do I do this? How do I get there? Show me the steps. Tell me what to do. But they never really go back to the cockpit of the plane and understand what's the intent for the change. Where do you want to go from here? Why there? Why not here? For example, there is a client that I work with now. She earns so much money a year, earns like triple my salary, yet I'm coaching her. But she's like, hate my job, doesn't like it, doesn't give me fulfillment, makes me very stressed, blah, 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 blah. And I asked her, like, okay, what else would you like to do? She's like, oh, I would like to learn some kind of wellness retreat with some friends. We just go on nice places, etc. Hopefully I can do that 2 to 3 years time. And I asked her a question like, why can't we do it now? Like, what do you mean? It's like, why do we have to wait 2 to 3 years? Why can't we do it now? I was like, I'm not saying you need to do it now, but just why 2 to 3 years? What is it about 2 to 3 years that make you say that? That's a safety blanket, right? Because it's 2 to 3 years time. Don't know what's going to happen next. So I have a reason, I have a way out. I think that's it, which is like, what does it matter? And then how do you find a way to make sure someone can hold you accountable or help you explore other options, help you find your own limit in the thought patterns so that you can catch yourself next time to go, oh, I'm doing this now. Oh, I'm doing that now. My objective for all my clients and students is that I don't want you forever. I want to get you to such a stage that you're self-aware and self-conscious that when I'm not there and you have a challenge, you can sort it out yourself. That's like my ultimate goal.
A lot of people are probably more familiar with the concept of a business coach as somebody who has probably done business before. And then they share with their sort of tutees, like, okay, how do I do a business? Like, what do I need to set up? And I think like the idea of having a personal coach is rather still very, very foreign at the moment. I think your podcast partner has constantly challenged you about is like, what's the value of like a personal coach? Like, what's the difference between like a therapist and like, or like somebody that has a license? Like, what does it mean, right? Personally, I've been through like some coaching sessions. One of the key things that they mentioned is that even as a manager, you can be a coach to your team, right? And what you do is actually you help them to eliminate the barrier that they might have in their work. It's very different from like management, and like you gotta find out the ways and when are you going to use coaching and when are you going to use management depending on their working styles. For example, like let's say if that person, she comes to you and she said, I don't know what to do, like how am I going to do this? So instead of like telling her the answer, you're going to ask her like, what have you tried? And she'll be like, I tried this, but I can't do this. So like, tell me what to do. But, you know, it doesn't help them because every single time when they have the problem, they're going to come to you instead of trying to think of their own feet. Like what is stopping them to actually work it out on their own? Of course, I'm not saying that like as a manager, you're not going to help them. It's just that like you need to help your people to be able to stand on their own feet. And that's very, very different from like the management where you're mentioning right now. I think like the concept is really similar as when you have your coachees, they come to you with a problem in life. You ask them with questions that takes them aback because I'm just very focused about my problem, or my issue that I'm facing. But when Zayne came to ask me like, oh, why am I not going to quit my job right now? And I was like, I actually probably never thought about it. Right. Yeah. But when you ask them like really, really difficult questions, then they'll be like, oh, yeah, why not? Why should I quit my job right now?
Yeah, exactly. We just delay.
Yeah. And helps them to get them to a point of like clarity in their thoughts. I think there are similarities, which is amazing. And I was supposed that there must be some really, really negative feedback that people associate with like coaching and all that. Okay, I see your face, I can tell that you're like, oh yeah. Even within like our friends, we do have people say, so what is Zayne up to? Like what exactly is he doing?
I think you're right. I think they have the best intention in that they care. That's why they start to use their way of looking at things to, why are you doing this? They are afraid of losing you, basically, because you haven't been the same person that you were. I don't hold any grudges against them because, like, I have to say, even when I post things on Instagram or whatever, I'm still so conscious about the people who are watching it. Like, oh shit, I'm putting myself out there. People are going to think of this about me. But there are also a lot of people who are quietly observing and paying attention to what you're doing. And it's very surprising when people come back and send you some message to say, oh, this is quite nice to hear. Oh, this is very good to see. This is actually what I need to hear today. But those are private messages. You don't see them. That's why now I'm more comfortable now to just like put myself out there and just like share what I do. But I'm also conscious about there will be people who doesn't want to see or hear or listen to any of those things, right? So I just think it's a shame that if we know they want to do something, but we're so worried about something else that we don't do it. And then I think at some point we're just going to think like, why do I live so much for someone else? Like, why can't I just live a moment for myself? So,
and people can be, a bit more openly supportive of other people's work.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And the thing is also, right, like negative people or people who doesn't like it, they always shout louder than the people who like it. So I've learned that, and actually that becomes an indication. Like if people disagree with you on something, that means you have a stand, and that means you have standards. That means you have a point of view, and that's a good thing. That's a sign of you working in a direction of who you want to become, and that's a good thing. So I now see it that way. If people say that, oh, I don't like it, or social media ads people run like, oh, this is just another fake guru online. Like, thanks for telling me that. Now I know I stand for something. And that doesn't tip me, so, and that's where the confidence bits comes in as well.
That's really great. I think I love the sharing and the conversation that we were able to have today. I think it's just so much insight. So we always talk about building a successful life, but of course, the definition of success does vary from everyone. Like if you are, as what Zayne has mentioned earlier, if you are happy and content with where you are, just be with it, right? Don't hate on somebody else because they want something more. Other people's journey to manage or deal with, right? So spread more love and spread more kindness in this world.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I wish you all the best and hope you will continue to inspire all of us and help us all to be the best version of ourselves that we want to be. Yeah.
Thank you. No, thank you for asking me to join. I enjoyed the conversation as well. So it's very good to share these things with people. And hopefully this message spreads out and someone who is watching is able to think about one thing or two a little bit differently. If you have one or two more of inspirations, just reach out to Chloe, on her social channels, just have a chat. But I think what you need to know if you're watching or listening is that we do not hold any judgment about what you share or tell us, because this is you. And I think the intention is to help you live the life that you want. Not me, but if that means that you have to share with somebody else so that you feel much better about where you want to be, then absolutely do that.
Very nicely said.
There you go.
Well, I need your social plugs, Zayne. Like, how can people find you?
So I'm pretty much on everywhere on social media, but not the TikTok and Snapchat. I don't do that a lot. But Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, I would definitely say just go Instagram, the Zayne Tan. So I know that you'll put it in the show notes, so that's fine. Also, I'm going to work on a free little gift for people because you're awesome if you're listening to this podcast and you spend the time here and you stay all the way to the end. So that 6-part framework that I said I'm going to work on, I am in the process of putting together on an online portal that you can access for free. So that will go into a bit more details about what the other 3 steps are to help you to get to where you want to be, what's a framework that I always use. And those frameworks are distilled after 3 years of learning and, pretty much 2 years of working with other people. They're real, they are tangible, they are actionable, not just some, nonsense fluff that you get from somewhere on the internet. So I'll put that together and share with everybody. It's probably going to be zanetan.com/gift. It's probably going to be that. But I'll confirm in a shortened time, but just check the description box and that's where you will get it.
Great. Thank you for giving the Saucy Podcast listener an exclusive invite and view into the awesome work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
I just need to put the time to make those videos and the landing page, etc. So, but that's on me to do.
All right. So we come to an end to our podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to the Saucy Podcast. I really, really, really appreciate all of you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.